Day two of the Diddy trial, prosecutors won. They didn't necessarily win for the reasons you might think. I will say that I think there was a problem prosecutors had, but we have an update at the end of this video where something happened in real time that could change everything. There was damning testimony, and I think this is why the prosecutors won today, that Cassie said on the stand that Diddy would threaten to release videos of the freak-off with her in it, various freak-offs, she said. That's extortion. And what the prosecution needs to prove is force or coercion. And there is no doubt, I think, in any jury's mind, that if you say to somebody, I'm going to release video of you in a freak-off, that's extortion, except what it requires is this: unless you do something or unless you don't do something. She has not closed that loop yet. She hasn't said he threatened to release video of the freak-offs unless I participated in more of them. If she said that squarely, case over as far as I'm concerned. That's coercion, and that's enough, I think, for the jury to convict. She hasn't completed that loop and said the threat to release the freak-off videos was so she would do X. She hasn't said that squarely, but there's certainly an intimation there that he was forcing her to do things. Is that enough? I don't know, but it's certainly something, and it's important if he's holding something like that over her head. Now, the reason I said that it's not what you think in terms of why the prosecutors won is, I think that statement about threatening to release the videos is really damning. But the other stuff that came out in the case, I don't know. I don't know that the jury is going to find necessarily force or coercion, because it's not just what's in Cassie's head, what she fears. It's what Diddy either communicates or insinuates. I didn't hear that today. So I want to give you a couple of examples of this, okay? So they talked about, I'm going to read this actually from a transcript of the hearing. We have a transcript. So here's what it says. Prosecutor, do you recall all of the freak-offs? Cassie, that would be impossible. Prosecutor, did you want to stop? She says, yes. I was humiliated. I didn't have those words then. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Prosecutor, did you tell him you didn't want to? She says, yes. And then she says, I brought it up gently. I didn't want him to just do it with someone else. Remember, they were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. Were you able to express your concerns to him? And the defense objects. The prosecutor rephrases the question. Why would you talk to him gently? She says, I didn't want him to be angry. So, yes, she says, I talked to him gently. What does gently mean? What does that mean? And you know that on cross-examination, the defense is going to raise that issue. What did you mean by saying you brought it up gently? Because, again, it's not what's in her head. It is what he either says or insinuates to cause coercion or create force. Okay, that's one example. Here's another one, and this gets a little bit graphic, okay? Prosecutor, did you want to be urinated on? You know, it came out with the sex worker who testified earlier that, that he would urinate at Diddy's direction on Cassie. So during the freak-offs. So, prosecutor, did you want to be urinated on? Defense, objection. And they get into the objection, the judge overrules it, and she says, no, I did not want it. Prosecutor, how did it feel? Cassie, it was disgusting. It was too much. I choked. No one could think I wanted it. Prosecutor, why were you choking? Cassie, too much urine in my mouth. Prosecutor, who else urinated on you? Cassie, Sean. So it wasn't just the sex worker, it was Sean, according to Cassie. Did you want Sean to urinate on you? Cassie, I didn't want anyone to urinate on me. Prosecutor, how often did it happen? Answer, often enough. And then, prosecutor, why didn't you say no? And this is what the defense is going to seize on. Cassie, it was obvious I didn't want to be on the ground being urinated on by two men. And then she says she never explicitly consented. Well, here's the thing about that. She says she didn't explicitly consent. The real issue is, did she explicitly object? And that, again, is what the defense is going to seize on in this case. That to convict Diddy, you have to show he did this against her will. He forced her to do it. He coerced her into doing it. And I don't feel like that loop has been closed yet. Now, it may be because she's still on the stand, and maybe they will close it, but I don't know. You would think that when they go down that line of questioning, they would have closed that loop then, and they didn't. So a lot of this is insinuation and what is in Cassie's head. Now, look, I am not saying that, oh, well, she should have said, I don't want to be urinated on, because most people don't want to be urinated on. And that's pretty obvious. And you take her at her word that she didn't want to, and I get it. To convict him, he has to somehow overtake her free will. Did she express that free will enough for him to have objected either directly or by insinuation? I don't know. This jury may just say, this is on its face disgusting. Nobody wants it. He knew it. He made her do it again. He degraded her. That's enough. Guilty. They may say that. But what if a juror in that deliberation room raises an issue and says, wait a minute, if you look at the jury instruction, it says you got to see force or coercion or duress. Where is the force, coercion, or duress? Then they start getting into, well, Cassie said she didn't like it. And then some other juror says, well, did she say it? And did he say you're doing it anyway? That would be the most direct thing. And so far, not seeing that. Maybe they think because of the power dynamic, it's obvious enough. I'm not advocating one side or another here. I'm just trying to give you, based on a lot of experience I've had in court and covering cases, that this is what juries do. And they could go either way on it. I just thought that this testimony specifically, based on the U.S. attorney coming out in this news conference, really strong, at least made me think, wow, they've got evidence that he forced her, that he said it. And that's what I took away from that news conference with the U.S. attorney. And it's kind of what I got from the indictment. I thought she was going to close that loop, and I didn't hear it. Now, again, that doesn't mean a jury wouldn't convict him, because there are all sorts of reasons that a jury would say, it's obvious. I mean, this is a powerful, powerful guy. She is under his thumb. So they could go that way. I'm just surprised that it didn't go as far as I thought it was going to go. Now, there's another thing, domestic violence. There is a lot of domestic violence in this case, and it is clear that Sean Combs used domestic violence as a tool in his toolbox. That's pretty obvious. And, you know, Cassie testified that there were times when she would have to hide in a hotel room for a week so the bruises on her face would heal. So there is absolutely no doubt. There's no doubt, just based on the Cassie video, that Diddy was brutal. Thing is, the defense is admitting that. They admitted it to the jury in opening statements. And, you know, the thing is that domestic violence is a state crime. And this is not a domestic violence charge that he faces. You know, this involves sex workers and interstate commerce and all of that. So, you know, his position is, look, this was mutual domestic violence. And, you know, he will point to what he says were abuses by Cassie. Again, I don't know that that airplane flies, because when you look at his size versus hers, you know, I don't know that's going to work. But, you know, they brought up that they want to introduce into evidence evidence of a bar fight Cassie was in where she wanted to kill somebody when she was high on drugs. So they're going to try to bring that in to show this kind of mutual domestic violence. Again, I don't know if that's going to work, but ultimately, this is not a domestic violence case, and I think that's one of the things. Now, I want to raise one other point, and then I'll stop, I promise. The other point I want to raise is the freak-off videos. A prosecution said they want to admit it into evidence, at least one of them. And the defense started objecting, saying they didn't want the media to see it. They haven't done that yet, and it's unclear whether the judge will clear the courtroom, whether the judge will let the jury see it away from the media, whether they sit there with, you know, some kind of a screen where the people in the courtroom can't see it other than the jurors. I don't know whether they do that or not. I don't know what the freak-off video shows. Does it show Combs in any way coercing or forcing her? It's going to be really relevant. The thing that I thought about was that Cassie is coming to court very, very pregnant. And that is hard for the jury to reconcile with these, you know, stories about freak-offs with Cassie involved and all. If they, you know, and that's the image of Cassie they see. If they see that video, I'm just thinking, as a prosecutor, what do you do? Because now all of a sudden the jury says, oh yeah, that was her back in the day, you know, when she was involved in this, and she is a very different person from we see now. Do you want to create that dichotomy? In a way, in a weird way, that might be a risk for the prosecution. But bottom line, I think with the threat to release the videos, at least there, the prosecution won, but they didn't win as big as I thought they would. Okay, we're doing this in real time, so right after I finished talking about what you just saw, this happened in court, which ended the day, and it's relevant. They brought up the famous 2016 Intercontinental Hotel, where Diddy viciously beat Cassie. Here's what the prosecutor said. Did you ever leave a freak-off before it was over? Cassie, yes, at the Century City Intercontinental. I finally had a premiere coming up, and I didn't want to mess it up, but Sean hit me. Prosecutor, at what point did Sean hit you? Cassie, between sessions. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Prosecutor, what happened next? Cassie, I got to the elevator. Next thing I knew, I was thrown to the ground. This is the video that we've all now seen. Prosecutor, who threw you down? Cassie, Sean, he grabbed me by my neck and hoodie. Prosecutor, let me show you the video. And they played the video. So what is interesting and confusing about this is she says, he hit me between sessions. It sounds like she's saying that there was a session in the hotel room and then maybe another session where she wanted to leave to go to this premiere because she says, he hit me in between sessions. I don't think that the hallway was in between sessions. I think, at least I thought, it was over by then. But she's suggesting, and I think they're going to tie this up tomorrow, that maybe there were two sessions inside the room. Bottom line is, If Diddy did hit her because she wanted to leave, that closes the loop. So if that's the case, and again, the court broke for the day right after this. But if that's the case, that he hit her because she wanted to leave, closes the loop, and that is a huge win for prosecutors.